Sometimes the loudest person in the room isn't the strongest. Sometimes the one throwing punches isn't the one making progress. And every so often, history hands the microphone to someone not because they earned it, but because they shouted loud enough to get it. But here's the thing about microphones. They don't amplify truth. They just amplify what's already there. Now, when I see what's being said, the tweets, the name-calling, I don't flinch. I've seen this play before. I've lived through it. And I've got more faith in the American people than to believe that a few cheap slogans and divisive tactics will define who we are. We've never been a country of bullies. We've been a country of builders. Let Meb clear. This is not about one man. This is about a moment. A moment when we're called to decide what kind of country we want to be. Do we cave to the politics of fear, or do we rise with the courage of our convictions? Do we tear another down, or do we lift each other up? You see, real leadership, second, that stands the test of time, isn't about flexing on stage. It's about standing firm when the lights go off. It's about listening when it's easier. Tosh out. It's about admitting when you're wrong and choosing progress over pride. Now, I understand that some folks think leadership is about winning a news cycler, dominating a headline, or tweeting at 2 in the morning. But leadership, real leadership, is about earning trust, not demanding obedience. It's about empathy. It's about showing up even when it's uncomfortable, especially when it's uncomfortable. And to those who think power is about intimidation, let me offer a lesson from history. Fair is temporary, but dignity echoes through generations. You may win applause for a moment, but you earn respect with lifetime. So to anyone out there wondering if decency still matters, if truth still matters, if honor still carries weight, I'm here to tell you it does, and it always will. Because while some may try to drag us backwards into shadows of division, we will keep moving forward together, powered not by the hate of a few, but by the hope of many. That's how we respond. Not with rage, but with resolve. Not with insults, but with ideals. Not with chouse, but with character. And trust me, when the dust settles, history won't remember the noise. It will remember thy integrity. People often mistake noise for strength. It's confuse the sound of authority with the presence of it. And in today's world, with so many platforms, so many channels, so many opportunities to speak, there's a temptation to believe that if someone's voice is the loudest, then their message mayst carry the most weight, but real strength doesn't shout. It doesn't nitto. Because when you're grounded in your values, when you know who you are and what you stand for, the truth speaks for itself. Leadership, real leadership, is not about controlling the conversation. It's about elevating it. It's not about out talking the other side or embarrassing your opponent. It's about knowing when to listen. It's about holding your ground, not because you're stubborn, but because your ground is rooted in principle, in purpose, in something bigger than yourself. When y'all walk into a room and you know who you are, you don't need to prove it. You didn't need to take up all the air or cast a shadow over everyone else. That people who try to dominate the space often do so because they're still looking for validation. They think power means talking over someone. But the strongest leaders, the ones history members, they're the ones who sat still while the world shouted around them and still made the clearest sound. We've seen moments like this before. Moments when bluster tried to replace vision, when charisma tried to outshine a character. But time and time again, those moments passed. Because at the end of the day, leadership built on ego is always fragile, and leadership built on service that endures. There's a reason we admire the leaders who were calm in the storm, why we remember the ones who extended a hand instead of a fist, because that kind of strength, the quiet, steady, unshakable kind, that's not something you can fake. It comes from within. It's built over time. It's earned and it's revealed when things get hard, not when everything's going your way. In your life, you will be tempted to prove yourself through your volume. You'll be in rooms where someone will try to dominate you with confidences, thoughter than it is deep. Don't let that shake you. Your worth is not determined by how many people hear yes speak, but by how many people remember what you stood for after you're gone? Strength is not how forcefully you impose your will. It's how consistently you lift others up. It's how clearly you define your values and how graceful you live them. It's in your ability to let someone else shine without feeling dimmed. It's in knowing that your light isn't a reflection of someone else's darkness, but the result of your own internal fire. We teach our kids to be respectful, to listen, to stay curious. But somewhere along the way, we tell adults that to be successful, you have veto, be ruthless. You have to be loud. You have to overpower others. And yet, when we look at the people who've truly shaped the world, they weren't the ones shouting the loudest. They were the ones whispering truth so powerful. The world had to lean in to hear them. So, don't fall for the illusion that dominance equals strength. Don't buy into the myth. Charisma is the same as character. Build your strength where it matters. In your patience, in your perseverance, in your willingness to take the harder road when it's the right one. And when you find yourself surrounded by the noisy end, you will don't raise your voice to compete. Raise your standards, raise your thinking, raise your sense of what's possible. Because when you doth it, the world notices. Maybe not right away, maybe not with a round of applause, but in time it becomes clear who stood tall and who simply stood loot. So the next time you find yourself in the presence of someone trying to impress you with how strong they sound, remember, strength isn't what you project, it's what you protect. It's not the echo of your own voice, it's the excellence you can hold without fear. That's what leaves a legacy. It's what carries power, not the kind that fades when the crowd goes home, but the kind that endures when no one's watching. Because at the end of the day, it's not how loud you are that counts. It's how deeply you're rooted, how solid your foundation is. Whether your actions match your words when it matters most. There's a lot of noise in the world right now, a lot of confusion. And sometimes, in all that noise, we start to wonder, does it still matter to tell the truth? Does it still matter to be decent? To treat people with respect? To keep your word even when no one is watching? Because when you turn on Theo Television or scroll through your feed, it might feel like the ones who bend through are the ones getting ahead. Eighth, ones who push others down are rising faster. But let me tell you something that time has proven over and over again. The truth always finds its way to the surface, and decency never goes out of style. The world has a funny way of testing our values. It puts us in situations where the easy thing and threat thing are rarely the same. It challenges us to choose between comfort and courage, between convenience and conscience. And those choices, the ones nobody else sees, those are the choices. Shape who we are. Because in Thand, your reputation might get you through the door. But your character daddies, how long you stay in the room. There are moments, quiet ones, when you'll be faced with a decision. Maybe it's about owning a mistake, but it's about telling the truth when it costs you something, or treating someone with kindness when the world tells you they didn't deserve it. In those moments, it might seem easier to stay silent, to look the other way, to play along. But those are the very moments that define us. It's not in the eyes of others, but in the mirror we face each morning. See, telling the truth isn't always glamorous. It doesn't always come with applause. Sometimes it's lonely. Sometimes it's hard. But there's something powerful about looking someone in the eye and knowing you gave them honesty, even when you didn't have to. There's something strong about staying true to your values when the crowd sways the other way. And there's some things really freeing about not having to remember which version of yourself you wear, pretending to be. Decency, too, is often underrated.
It's quiet.
Does and man attention. It doesn't trend. Beauty changes lives. Holding the door for someone, standing up for someone who's being overlooked, taking a breath before I speak and choosing words that heal instead of harm. These small acts don't make headlines, but they build communities. They build trust. They build the kind of world we say we want to live in. Now I know there will always be people who tell you that those things don't matter, that the world is cutthroat, that you have to lie, cheat, or step on others to get ahead. And maybe for a while those people will seem like they're winning. But life is not aspirant. It's a marathon, and over time, shortcuts catch up with people. Even when buried, finds air. And people remember how you made them feel far longer than they remember what you achieved. Decency is not weakness. In fact, in a world full of shouting, cruelty, and cynicism, it might be the greatest strength there is because it takes courage to stay kind. It takes resilience to stay honest when dishonesty seems rewarded.
And it takes vision to build something that lasts, something rooted in integrity rather than illusion.
Think about the people you admire most, not for their fame, not for their fortune, for their impact. I'll bet that what draws you to them is not their cleverness or their power, but authenticity, their compassion, their ability to speak truth, and live truth even when it's hard. That's what moves us. That's what lingers in the hearts of others. So if you're ever wondering whether to speak up, speak honestly. If you're debating between being clever or being kind, choose kindness. Not sure whether the truth is worth the cost? Epromise you. It always is. Because the world doesn't just need more opinions, it needs more integrity. It needs people who are willing to tell the truth. Not because it's easy, but because it's right. And when the noise fades, when the moment passes, what remains is not flash of popularity or the sway of influence, but the steady, quiet power off, a life lived with honor, a voice that told the truth, a spirit that chased decency. That's how change happens, not with rage, not with deceit, but with one person after another choosing to do the right thing when it would have been easier not to. And if you choose to be own of those people every day in every moment, no matter who's watching, then you'll be building something that cannot be shaken. Because the truth doesn't need to be shouted and decency doesn't need to be defended. They simply need to be lived. Some people think strength is about being hard, about showing no motion, about pushing through everything with your jaw clenched, and our heart locked away. Somewhere along the line, we were taught that showing vulnerability was weakness. That's understanding. Someone else's pain meant you were soft, that if you paused, to listen, to feel, then somehow you didn't have what it takes to lead, to win, to survive. But that idea is not just wrong. It's dangerous, because the truth is the strongest people you will ever meet are the ones who've lived through heartbreak and still choose to love. The ones who've been hurt and still show up with compassion. The ones who've carried burdens no one could see, and yet still reach out to help carry someone else's load. Empathy is not the opposite of strength. It is a form of it. It's the ability to put yourself in someone else's shoes, even when your own path is difficult. It's the willingness to pause your own race long enough to make sure someone else doesn't fall by hand. That's not weakness. That's courage. You can be powerful and gentle. You can be decisive and compassionate. You can set high standards and still care deeply for the people who are reaching to meet them. In fact, the best leaders, the ones who inspire, loyalty and leave legacies, they're not the ones who bark orders or pretend to have all the answers. They're the ones who listen. The ones who admit when they didn't know. The ones who look someone in the eye and say, I see you, I hear you, and I'm with you. There's a reason why children don't remember what you said as they remember how you made them feel. It's because connection is the currency of trust, and trust is the foundation of real strength, whether it's in a family, a workplace, or a nation. Now, it's easy to talk tough. It's easy to hide behind bravado and pride. It's easy to dismiss someone else's struggle when you haven't lived it. But easy doesn't build character. Easy doesn't make the world better. What makes the world better is when people choose to open their hearts. Especially it would be easier to close them. Imagine a world where leaders responded to pain not with policy alone, but with presence. Where success was measured not just by profit margins, but by how many lives were lifted. Where the person holds their job wasn't just a statistic, but a story worth hearing. That's a world built on strength. Not the strength of fists, but the strength of hearts. We've all had moments where we needed someone to understand, to not fix it, to not judge, just to be there, just to say, you're not alone, and I've ever Had someone do that for you? Then you know how powerful that can be. Now, imagine what it looks like when you're the one giving that gift to someone else. Empathy creates bridges. It breaks down walls. It transforms enemies into neighbors. And while it might not make the evening news or Govril online, it's the thing that quietly changes the course of a life. The real question is not whether you can't stand tall when you're praised, but whether you can remain kind when you're challenged. Whether you can hold space for someone else's pain, even while managing your own. Whether you can lead net just with your mind but with your heart. Strength is not being unmoved. Strength is being moved and still choosing to rise. It's hearing the stories of those who've even overlooked, underestimated, pushed the margins, and deciding not to look away. So when you're out there chasing your goals, building your dreams, remember this. Success without compassion is hollow. Power without pathy is unstable. But when you lead with both, when you marry strength with understanding, you become the kind offerson who doesn't just make progress, but makes meaning. Because what people remember is not just what you built, but who you were while you built it. And a few can stand in your truth while holding space for someone else's. If you can be bold without being cruel, decisive without being blind, firm without losing your humanity, then Yah will be the kind of strong this world doesn't forget. There's a certain illusion that power has to be loud. That'll lead you have to dominate. That towing you have to make others feel small. We live in a time where intimidation is soft and mistaken for influence. Where the person who speaks with the most force is assumed to be the one with the most strength. But true strength has never been measured by how many people you cancel. It's been measured by how many people you can lift. Power, when it's used as a threat, is fragile because it relies on fear. It forces others to fall in line, not because they believe in the vision, but because they're afraid of the consequences. And fear, while effective in the short term, is never sustainable. Eventually, people wake up. They begin to question. They begin top us back because no one wants to live under a shadow forever. But integrity, now that's different. Integrity doesn't mean submission. It earns respect. It's not about forcing people to follow. It's about inspiring them to walk with you. When your actions line up with your words, when your decisions are grounded in principle, when you choose what's right over what's easy, you build something that fear never can. You build trust. And trust is the foundation of anything that's meant to last. See, intimidation might get you obedience, but integrity earns you loyalty. And there's a big difference between people who will work for you and people who believe in you. Between those who stay because of thee have to and those who stay because of thee want to. If you want to lead, if you want to build something meaningful, whether it's a business, a movement, or a life, you don't do it by making people afraid. You do it by making them feel seen, by treating them with dignity, by letting your character speak louder than your voice. There's courage in holding yours forward to a higher standard, even when one is watching. There's power in saying, I don't know. When you're expected to have all the answers, there's strength in apologizing when you've made a mistake. Those things didn't make you look weak. They make you human. And humanity at its best is what holds people together. We live in a world that, too, often rewards bravado over honesty, where posturing is praised and humility is overlooked. But when the lights go down, when the crowd moves on, what matters most isn't how loud you were. It's how true you were. Did you keep your word? Did you treat people fairly? Did you stand up for those who couldn't stand up for themselves? People didn't. Forget those things. Maybe no tried away. Maybe not in the moment, but over time, character reveals itself. And the people who led with intimidation are surely remembered not for what they built, but for what they destroyed. The people who led with integrity, though they're the ones whose influence grows even after they're gone. You'll face moments in your life when you'll be tempted to choose power over principle, when you'll be told that being feared is better than being respected, that cutting corners is smarter than doing things the right way. And in those moments, you'll have a choice a Simplione. Will you let the pressure define you, or will you stay rooted in who you are? Because here's the truth. The world doesn't need more people who can intimidate. It needs more people who can inspire. It needs leaders who don't just flex their authority, but embody responsibility. It needs voices that rise not to drown theirs out, but to call others in. That's the kind of power it forms. That's the kind of influence that it endures. It's full. So if you ever find yourself wondering whether integrity is worth it, especially when others are getting ahead by doing less, remember this. Integrity is the only kind of offer that doesn't require permission. It doesn't need to be defended. It stands on its own because it's not built on what fears you. It's built on who trusts you. And when you lead with that, when you make your values your compass, you'll find that the path you walk might be harder, but it's higher. And when you'll look back, you won't just see what you accomplished. You'll see who you became in the process. That, in the end, is the real victory. Hope is not blind optimism. It's not sitting back and wishing for things to get better on thy own. Hope is not weak. Hope is a decision, a daily deliberate choice to believe that something better is possible. Even when you can't see it yet. Especially when the road gets hardened, the voices around you say, give up, it's not worth it. But it is worth it. Because every step forward that humanity's ever taken, every movement that's broken barriers, every invention that's changed lives, every freedom, one began it with certainty. But with hope, it began with someone somewhere choosing to believe that the way things are is not the way they have to be. That the story isn't over. That the next chapter can look different than the last one. Hope is the foundation of progress, Bez. It gives us something to build on. It gives us the courage to try, thrill to start, the faith to keep going, when everything in us says to stop. Without hope, people settle. They adjust injustice. They make peace with pain. But with hope, people rise. They question what they've been told is permanent. They challenge what's been accepted as inevitable. And that's when real change begins. Look at history. We're theons who shaped the world didn't wait for someone else to give them permission to dream. They dared to imagine a better future and then put their hands to work. And they did it knowing they might not see the end result. Did it knowing that progress takes time. That it takes generations. But they still believed. And that belief, that spark, it was enough to light fires that are still burning today. That same spark lives in you. You may not feel it every day. Or maybe seasons when life weighs you down. When you're tired, discouraged, or unsure. But it's there, and when you feed it, when you protect it, when you let it guide you, it becomes a force more powerful than fear, more durable than doubt. Hope doesn't ask you to ignore reality. It asks you to face it with your eyes wide open and still believe you can shape it. Hope doesn't promise ease. It promises meaning. It says, even if I fail, fail, trying to build something better than, succeed at protecting anything broken. And that's the kind-off mindset that moves the needle. That is kind of spirit that's contagious. When people see you hoping, not passively, but actively, it reminds them that they can hope too. It invites them to believe again. And when enough people believe, doors start to open, walls start to crack, systems begin to shift. But here's the thing. Hope requires responsibility. You can't just want things to change. You have to be willing to show up, to speak up, to stand up. You have to vote. You have to volunteer. You have to keep learning, keep listening, keep showing. Empathy to Paula, whose experiences are different from your own. Hope without action is a wish. But hope paired with effort, that's a movement. You may not be able to fix everything. No one can. But you can start with what's in front of you. You can make your corner of the world just a little more just, a little more akin, a little more whole. And when millions of people commit to that kind-off progress day after day, that's when the world begins. To shift beneath our feet, you'll hear voices tell you that nothing changes, that power never gives itself up, people don't really care. But those voices aren't new, they've always been there. And every time they've been proven wrong, not by perfect people, but by hopeful ones. By people who knew that while they couldn't control everything, they could control how they showed up. And They chose to show up with love, with purpose, with faith in something bigger. Thank themselves. So when the night feels long, when the progress feels slow, remember what you're standing on. It's not comfort, not convenience, but hope. The deep, unshakable belief that the story of tomorrow is still being written, and Yah have a hand in the ink. At the end of the day, the measure of who we are is not found in how loudly we speak or how many titles we hold. It's in how we choose to live. When no one is keeping score, it's in the quiet decisions, the moments of restraint, the choice to listen when it's easier to shout, to tell the truth when it would be more convenient to hide it, to lift someone up when the world teaches us to look the other way. You don't have to be famusto-led. You don't need a stage to make an impact. All you need is the courage to be consistent, the humility to be honest, and the heart to care deeply and genuinely, even when it's not popular, especially when it's not popular. Because change doesn't begin in grand speeches or sweeping declarations. It begins with one person choosing Tobolev, choosing to act, choosing to be better. That person can be you. That person must be you. So carry yourself with quiet strength, speak with clarity, lead with compassion, and walk forward, not because the road is easy, but because the destination is worth it. And never forget the legacy you leave behind would be written in how many people feared you, but in how many people felt, seen, heard, and empowered because of you. The work is not over. The world still needs you, and the future is watching. Let's rise to meet it.